My name is Ethan. Unlike most people my age who bolted for the city the second they got their diplomas, I stayed behind in my hometown. It's a quiet, fog-heavy valley town where everyone knows your business. I took a job teaching at the local elementary school so I could help my aging parents around the house. It was a Tuesday when the final bell rang, sending a swarm of cheering kids past me into the afternoon sun. I was packing my bag when a voice stopped me. It was melodic, but it sounded fragile, like glass about to snap. Ethan. I turned around. It was Sarah. She was the only other young teacher at the school and, honestly, the most beautiful woman in the county. But today she looked like a ghost. Her skin was a sickly, translucent white, and her eyes were bloodshot, staring at something just over my shoulder. "I'm not feeling well," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Can you cover my classes for a few days?" I agreed, maybe a bit too quickly. She gave me a forced, hollow smile that didn't reach her eyes that were filled with a creeping, silent dread. She walked past me without another word. I watched her silhouette sway until she vanished around the corner, leaving me with a heavy, sinking feeling in my gut. Later that night, I realized I'd forgotten to pick up my father's heart medication. The nearest 24-hour pharmacy was 10 miles away in the next town over. By the time I finished the trek back, the sun had long since abandoned the sky. The path home was a lonely stretch of dirt flanked by waist-high weeds and dense woods. In the daylight, it's just nature. At night, the weeds look like skeletal fingers reaching out for your ankles. I tucked my chin into my collar, my heart drumming a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Then I reached the Blackwood River. Because of the uneven terrain, there wasn't a real bridge, just a makeshift wooden floating bridge with no handrails. As I approached, I froze. A dark shape was standing right in the center of the planks. I rubbed my eyes, praying it was a trick of the moonlight. It wasn't. A silhouette stood perfectly still, facing the black water. I checked my watch, 12 a.m. Suddenly the figure vanished. My scalp went numb. The air was freezing, but I was drenched in a cold sweat. I crouched in the tall grass, scanning the bridge. Nothing. I waited, counting my breaths, before finally summoning the courage to step onto the wood. The moment my foot touched the bridge, it reappeared. Didn't walk there. Didn't climb. Was just there. A woman, her back to me, staring into the abyss of the river. Just as a scream was about to break from my throat, she spoke. It was that same melodic voice. "Ethan." I exhaled, nearly collapsing with relief. It wasn't a ghost. It was Sarah. I wiped the sweat from my forehead, embarrassed by my own terror. I started toward her, wondering why on earth she was out here in the dead of night. But before I could reach her, she stepped off the edge. There was no splash, just a silent slip into the dark. I panicked and lunged toward the water, ready to dive in. But then I stopped. I knew this river. At this time of year, it was barely ankle-deep. I looked down. The moonlight hit the clear water and the stones below. There was no body, no ripples, no Sarah. I searched for an hour, splashing through the cold stream, calling her name. Nothing. I eventually convinced myself she must have played a cruel joke and run off into the darkness. I went home, shaken, and collapsed into bed. I was woken the next morning by a sound that haunts me to this day. A collective wail rising from the neighbors. A funeral cry. I ran outside and found my parents coming back from the house down the road, their faces ashen. "Sarah is dead," my mother sobbed. "That's impossible," I stammered. "I saw her at midnight. At the bridge." My father's grip on my arm was like iron. He dragged me inside and locked the door before telling me what they found. Yesterday, Sarah had locked herself in her room. Her parents heard her come in, but she wouldn't come out for dinner. In the middle of the night, her mother heard strange noises coming from behind the door, the sound of the bed creaking violently, a rhythmic, wet thumping against the floor. When they finally kicked the door down, Sarah was lying on the floor, her face a bruised, metallic blue. She was long gone. But the detail that sent the town into a frenzy was her body. When she went into that room, she was a slender young woman. When they found her corpse a few hours later, her stomach had distended, swollen and tight as if she were 9 months pregnant. I don't go out after dark anymore. Because I know what I saw on that bridge wasn't a woman. And I'm terrified of whatever was growing inside her when she jumped.